나다, 사이코패스 건산단년 크리스. 권우씨, 그 와중에 고다군하네. 고마우니까 잠깐 권으로 삼행시하고 가겠습니다. 건도는 우리 땅. 고맙습니다. 고맙습니다. 여러분, 그만. 먼저 저는 딸죠. 한국에서 제일 유명한 학사 바로 크리스 학사님입니다. 근데 박사님 하면서 왜 학사한테는 학사님이라고 하지 않을까요? 앞으로는 학사님이라고 부르십시오. 그게 싫다면 당신은 fucking racist입니다.
학사님.
자, 한번 해봅시다. 크리스 학사님!
크리스 학사님.
자, 니들 저번에 산지 박사와 함께 한국 사회에 대해 심도 있게 얘기한 거 기억나지?
그럼 도지코인은 사도 되나요?
저는 반대입니다. 도지코인 가상화폐 중에서도 가상코인인데 그런 코인이야. 본인 돈이니까 알아서 하는데 알아서 해도 돼. 근데 나는 추천하지 않아.
박사님 뭘 알아요?
나는 이 프로그램으로 세계의 교수들에게 긴장감을 줬습니다.
너무나 긴장되는 것.
그리고 얼마 전 한 유명 교수로부터 출연하고 싶다는 연락을 받았습니다. 바로 베스트셀링 작가 그리고 유명 교수 프로페서 조던 피터슨. 세계 유명 박사들이 눈치 보고 교수들이 구애하고 일본도 전전긍긍할 유튜버 누구?
전전긍긍.
맞아요. 그게 바로 나 척척 학사 크리스예요. 자, 긴 말 하지 마세요. 도와줘요 박사님. 2편 조던 피터슨입니다. 자, 선수 입장. Hi, Professor Peterson. I'm Chris, the Soviet girl in Seoul. Don't worry, I'm not a Marxist, I'm Bajija. Well, firstly, welcome to the most informative channel in South Korea. After I got a proposal from you, I've been thinking about what to ask you, an eminent psychologist and professor. So, I did every possible searching about you on the internet, using all the database technologies I have. And I've just made up my mind to ask you about the gender conflict, a big issue in South Korea. Let's call it the gender war, because if I treat this issue inappropriately, I could face public execution. So I always carry an apology on me, just in case. So, I want to ask you a few questions. Given the case of the US, which experienced gender conflicts earlier in Korea, is the current gender-driven crisis between men and women a necessary step in societal evolution? And just for information, I've just cleaned up my room.
Hey, Christina, you asked, is the current gender-driven crisis in the relationship between men and women a necessary step in societal evolution? Well, it might be a necessary step in biological evolution, not just social evolution, let's say. I mean, there's always been tension because there's tension between people, and there's certainly tension between people when they're trying to cooperate and compete in the pursuit of mutual long-term goals, and men and women have been doing that forever. So there's no shortage of conflict and cooperation. There's new sources of conflict. So I would say that our societies have organized themselves over the last 200 years to make it possible for women to operate in domains that were once limited pretty much by necessity to men. By necessity, I mean that we weren't sophisticated enough to provide women with what they needed to allow them to make maximal use of their cognitive gifts, for example, in the general marketplace of productivity and ideas. So what's changed? Well, standards of hygiene. So there are public toilets everywhere. That makes travel a lot easier. Dress has changed. That's made toileting much more straightforward. The provision of sanitary equipment for menstruation has helped tremendously. The fact that the streets are safe enough for women to walk down and, to operate publicly in the streets and public spaces in general in the civilized world, so to speak. And the birth control pill, which has brought reproduction under voluntary control, all of that's made it possible for men and women to contribute to broader elements of human social enterprise. So that's only since approximately 1960, and we just haven't sorted out all the issues. We're not even close to having done that. So, and we don't know what that means. Women were slaves in some sense to their reproductive function forever. And I suppose that men were the slaves to female reproductive function in the same way forever. And now that constraint has been at least partially removed. And that means in some sense that we're entirely new organisms. And so we're not exactly sure about the difference between male and female anymore. And all this is reflected in the confusion about gender identity, because gender identity, at least in part, is the adoption of roles, and the roles have changed.
Well, as you said, if it's a necessary step for social and biological evolution, can both sides reach a social consensus in this way by insulting each other? Or if either males or females would surrender their position and accept the other side's dominance, would that end the conflict?
Well, if they accepted the other side's dominance, that would end the conflict. But of course, human beings will never accept someone else's dominance, because that's not what we're like. A false acceptance of the other sex's dominance would exacerbate the conflict, because it never leads to a solution of the underlying tension that's driving the conflict. So, no, the way forward is through voluntary negotiation and voluntary specification of voluntary roles. And that's going to require a tremendous amount of discussion and conflictual discussion. And that's happening, in every kitchen, in every household, in every bedroom, in every society all across the world, with a whole variety of different answers to the central problem. But no, the negotiated voluntary solutions are stable across time. That's the best we have. They have to negotiate a peaceful solution. It's very difficult. It takes a lot of courage. It takes intelligence. It takes articulation. But that's the best bet. And that way everyone can capitalize on everyone else's abilities, and that would be of benefit to all of us. I mean, bringing women into the workforce essentially doubles our brain power if we can sort it out properly. Obviously, that's going to be a benefit to everyone, even though it comes with its own problems.
Thank you. I agree that we need to find the best methods of negotiating by using our courage. By engaging in tremendous amount of discussion, we can lead to making progress. But on the online battlefield, there is still a tremendous amount of gender debate going on. Sometimes there is lack of courage and intelligence. Frankly speaking, I doubt this place is a marketplace of ideas that can work on self-purification. The key, trolling and vicious, coordinated social media attacks have become a tool for manipulating public opinion. This tool has proven useful in forcing other people to repeat things they do not believe in. So, how can one overcome this? And will this ever change?
Well, it won't change in all likelihood, because there's always people who are willing to use coercion to attain their ends. How do we stop it? You don't do it. You don't bow to the pressure. You don't apologize if you haven't done anything wrong. Don't say things that you don't mean. And don't remain silent when you have something to say. Maybe you should shut up to begin with and think about it. But you think about it, you still have something to say. It's time to say it. You just betray yourself. You're just a tyrant to yourself under those conditions. And unless you believe in tyranny over the long run, that's not going to work out. Don't give up your right to the freedom of your speech and thought. And that starts in universities, for example. So university students, high school students, maybe you're inclined to write what you think the teacher wants to hear. It's like, don't do that, because that's how you'll end up thinking. You stay true to your own thought. Erroneous though it may be, put it forward in the best possible manner you can and take your lumps. It's the best long-term strategy. It might hurt in the short term, probably will. But, tyranny prevails when people don't stand up against it. It's not like it's simple, but there isn't another solution, so it doesn't matter if it's complicated. And, maybe as our social media forms evolve, we'll evolve social norms. We haven't done that for platforms like Twitter. The institutions are too young to have evolved proper checks and balances and proper social norms, and they'll probably keep transforming so rapidly that won't happen. So, well, for me, that points back to an individual ethic, right? You try to straighten yourself up and act ethically and bring that to whatever domain of interaction you happen to be utilizing. And so, that's what we have to strive for and aim for.
Thank you, Professor.
Thanks for the questions.
However, in my opinion,
소환사 한 명이 게임을 종료했습니다.
Professor? 땡겼냐?
말도 안 돼.
그렇습니다, 여러분. 내가 피터슨을 이겼습니다. 한국 사회 이슈에 대한 의견 공유해주신 피터슨 교수 고맙습니다. 토론 내용의 요약은 이렇습니다.
역시 박사님.
구독자 여러분의 의견은 어떠셨습니까? 전 방금 중요한 사실 한 가지를 깨달았습니다. 박사들이 넣으면 비디오 분량 확보가 쉽다는 거. 그리고 여러분, 잠깐 알아야 할 것이 있습니다. 도와줘요 박사님 컨텐츠는 세계 학자들의 의견을 공유하는 것이지 내가 특정한 스탠스를 가지는 것이 아닙니다. 전 소속이 없습니다. 올림픽 러시아 선수단처럼 말입니다. Такое вообще можно говорить?
마셔야겠지?
응? 아, 구독자구나. 뭐라고? 아, 그래서 이 갈등을 어떻게 끝낼 수 있냐고? 나도 몰라요. 내가 알면 이러고 어떻겠습니까? 피스 프라이스 받겠지. 하지만 내가 아는 유일한 해결책은 서로를 혐오하지 않는 것, 이해하려고 노력하는 것, 댓글로 하기하는 것. 오늘 이 비디오의 댓글에서만큼은 혐오가 아닌 이해를 보고 싶습니다. 만날 수 없면 즐겁잖아요. 원피스도 아니고. 하하하. 여기까지 도와줘요 박사님의 크리스 학사님이었습니다. 굿나잇. 한국 사회에 대해 심도 있게 토론하고 싶은 다른 박사님은 제 인스타에 DM 보내주십시오.